Welcome to the Beyond Bloated Podcast. I'm Carly, a certified health coach helping women under 50 ditch their bloat without having to follow super strict and stressful protocols. As someone who's struggled with all sorts of digestive issues for over 5 years, I know exactly how you're feeling. I also know that there's a way to feel better, and it doesn't have to involve tons of expensive supplements and insanely restrictive diets. Join me as I share all of my bloat-busting wisdom to help you say goodbye to that bloated belly and regain your confidence. It's time for you to move beyond bloated. Hello, everyone. A couple weeks back, I had my first ever interview episode. So Rachel came on the podcast and we had an awesome chat about gut health. And I told you guys, I'm going to have more interviews on the way. And I wasn't lying. So today, I have another exciting guest interview. Her name is Laurie, and she is a fellow holistic health coach who has battled gut issues for a significant part of her life. Laurie is another friend that I met through Instagram, so social media isn't all bad. We bonded over our gut issues and our eerily similar journeys. She grew up in a relatively healthy household, but then she had the stereotypical college experience, which many of us know. It's filled with alcohol, trashy food, and minimal movement. I'm sure this will sound super familiar to some of you. It really does for me. I lived that exact college experience, and it put me where I was 5 years ago. My conversation with Laurie today will be focused on Laurie's gut issues, including her struggles with constipation and bloating, her frustrations with conventional medical approaches, and her journey toward improving her gut health with the help of a functional nutritionist. We'll also get into some of the dietary changes and lifestyle adjustments that she's made on her quest for optimal gut health. So if you've ever faced similar challenges or you're simply curious about holistic approaches to gut health, you're going to love this episode. So without further ado, I'd like to give a big warm welcome to Laurie DePoe. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm so excited to dive into our conversation today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited to share my story.
Awesome. Well, I think we're just going to jump right into it. So if you could start by letting us know more about your upbringing, your early relationship with health and food, things like that, that would be great.
Okay. So growing up, I grew up in like a very typical household, mom, dad, older brother, daughter. We ate really healthy. Didn't really have a terrible relationship with food. I did witness like my mom dieting a lot, but it didn't really affect me back then. I know that I was born with gut issues. I was colic, so I was kind of had gut health issues from birth. But as a kid, I don't remember having any issues. We ate pretty healthy. We had fruit in the house as snacks. We had the typical dinners, meat, potatoes, vegetables, things like that. I was very active. I was in a lot of sports. Things were fine. I didn't really notice, honestly, any gut health issues until I started dieting. Well, I guess I grew up healthy and then I went to college is where I know we've talked about that, like the same story. I went to college. I stopped doing sports. I started drinking. I started eating crap, eating late night stuff that we didn't have at home that like my roommates were introducing me to, like tater tots and hot dogs and things that we didn't typically eat at home that I was now not only eating regularly, but like at 2 a.m. You know what I mean? So I started to actually gain a lot of weight. I was always fairly thin and athletic and strong growing up. And then college happened. And like I said, everything changed. So I started to pack on the pounds and just started like gaining weight every year. I got bigger and bigger. Once I graduated college, I probably maxed out at about 180 pounds and I'm 5'3". And that was I was 27 at that time. Yeah. And I went to the doctor and the doctor was like, oh, you have really, really high cholesterol. You need to be on cholesterol meds. And so I said, well, I don't want to be on meds. I'm going to lose weight myself. And so I started dieting and I kept dieting. And I got to a really healthy weight. I lost 60 pounds and then it became like this game. And it was like, how much more weight can I lose? Can I lose more? Can I lose more? And it was like every day I wanted to get on the scale and see it go down. that's ultimately where the real gut health issues came from and started.
You were relatively healthy as like a kid. Then you went to college, had the stereotypical college experience that many of us have, but it seems not everyone suffers the consequences as heavily as others. Like you and
Right.
I have similar stories where, you know, we went to college and then our gut health took a turn, but it didn't start with obvious gut health symptoms, right? Like
Right.
for you, you said you started gaining weight and then you started dieting to lose that weight. So then at what point did you notice this is impacting my gut?
When I couldn't go to the bathroom anymore.
Oh no.
It started with like bowel movement, like changes in the appearance of the my bowel movements. I was like, I had normal bowel movements and then all of a sudden they were just not normal anymore. They just kind of got smaller and smaller and smaller. And then it got harder and harder to go. And I was like, back then I didn't equate it to my health. I didn't think it had to do with not eating enough or not eating the right things. I should say, to help me lose that weight, I was consuming a ton of gut disrupting ingredients, right? I was doing all the fat-free, sugar-free, therefore artificial sweeteners, so many of those things. Like the lower the calorie food, the better. Not realizing what it was doing to my gut. And so, I didn't really know anything about any of that back then. And so what did I do? I just started taking supplements to help me go to the bathroom. I added psyllium husk and I added this. And then for 15 years, I continued to add in more, like, because what would happen is these supplements would work. They would help me go to the bathroom. And then my gut was like, oh, we see what you're doing. We're going to not help work anymore. And then I would need another supplement and then I would need something else. And so just over the years, I ended up with like a handful of supplements that I have to take every single night in order to maybe go to the bathroom the next day.
You make such a good point because like so often people are looking for that magic pill. And even when it's supplements, like people are like, oh, it's natural, so it's okay. But supplements are meant to supplement a healthy lifestyle and diet. They're not going to be the answer. And it sounds like you experienced that firsthand. Like your diet wasn't the best at the time because you were dieting, trying to lose weight, eating like not so great ingredients, and you were just relying on supplements to cure your constipation. And that didn't work, did it?
No. And ultimately, I mean, not only was I not eating the right foods, but looking back now and knowing what I know now, I just wasn't even eating enough. I mean, it's no wonder why I couldn't go to the bathroom. I didn't have enough food in me to like really help that out too. And then in 2019, 2018, I decided I would go to doctors and the routine there. They're like, oh, everything's great. You're healthy. You're perfectly healthy. Because so many times the doctors like base our health off of our weight. And at that point I had lost weight and I was healthy. And so that's all I kept getting. So I decided to go and get a colonoscopy. I know, you're not supposed to get a colonoscopy till you're 45, but I was 35 or whatever, 30 something in my late 30s. And I was like, I need to get it. I need to figure it out. Something's not right. Like it shouldn't be this hard to go to the bathroom. So I got a colonoscopy and everything's great.
Yeah.
And that was it. They send you on your way. They're like, you're great. Your intestines are wonderful. And they send you on your way. And here I'm left now again, still like, it's not great,
Yeah.
I
feel your pain with that so hard because I had the same experience where I had never been overweight in my whole existence. I just have a very fast metabolism because I was eating terribly, probably worse or equivalent to you. And I didn't gain weight, but I experienced tons of other problems. And yeah, doctors would see me and they'd be like, oh, you're a young, thin individual. Your tests look fine. So there's nothing wrong with you. Meanwhile, I'm like bloated, experiencing pain every time I eat. I'm having like explosive diarrhea, like multiple times in a day.
Yeah.
And
Like
they're
the
like,
opposite of me.
normal. It's like, that's not normal. It's the opposite of normal. It's so frustrating. So
Mhm.
what did you end up doing when you didn't get the help from doctors?
Well, that was, several years ago. So honestly, I just continued taking the supplements. I added in prunes and I made sure I drank enough water every day. And, I kept doing the things that I, thought would help. I eventually ended up going vegan. Well, actually, I first cut out gluten. Right.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, supplements stopped working. What else can we do? And then, I've heard, you hear through the grapevine and through social media, gluten's not good for your gut. So like, okay, I'm going to cut it out. And I cut out gluten. And, I did notice some changes. It didn't help completely. So I went to dairy. I cut out dairy. And that actually helped other issues, which again, learning, it's so funny, all the things you learn in hindsight. But was suffering from severe cystic acne. I had no acne growing up as a child. Like as a teenager, rarely got acne. All of a sudden, my face was covered in cystic acne and it was so painful and it was so brutal. Like the doctor had me on antibiotics for it. It was really bad. And once I cut dairy, that really started to help. That really started to clear up my skin. I was like, okay, maybe my gut doesn't like dairy. So now I'm gluten-free, dairy-free. And when I'm still having trouble going to the bathroom, I'm like, I'm going to go plant-based. I'm going to just go vegan. I mean, I was desperate. I was willing to
Yeah.
do and try anything because, not going to the bathroom is super uncomfortable, but you get bloated as it is when you have gut issues, but then not going to the bathroom just intensifies that bloat. And it, was to the point where the bloat was so distended that like my stomach felt like it was stretching, like my skin was stretching, it's so painful. So I went vegan for a few years and that seemed to work. Again, it was one of those things that worked great. I felt a lot better. I felt like a lot less inflamed for a while. And then again, my body seemed to adjust to it. And it was just like same old stuff. And it was like, at this point, I was like, I don't know what else to do. I've literally tried everything, right? Like I can't be any healthier. Like any suggestion people would give me, I'm like, tried it. I'm doing it. So around that time is when I started to get really bad periods. Like I always had really bad periods, but something was wrong. Ended up finding out that I had a large fibroid tumor on my uterus, a uterine tumor, fibroid tumor, and it just continued to grow bigger and bigger and bigger. And it was wreaking havoc. It was making the bloating worse. It was causing more constipation issues. It was doing all these things it was just intensifying all the other gut issues I was having. I tried to have it removed. Unfortunately, they weren't able to remove it all. So last year I ended up getting a hysterectomy.
Oh, okay.
And I was honestly super hopeful that getting that tumor removed would solve all of my constipation issues. I was convinced that tumor, because it was very large, it was like an 8-centimeter tumor, so almost the size of a child's head at birth. So I was very convinced that tumor was the reason why I was so constipated. Like, oh, the tumor's sitting on my intestines. It's making it hard for me to go. So I was so hopeful that all of my problems would disappear, and they didn't. My period problems disappeared, but not my constipation problems. And so at that point, it was like, I've tried everything. I need professional help. I need professional help. I need testing. The traditional doctor route wasn't working. Obviously, it was a dead end. I tried multiple doctors, like multiple gynecologists, multiple gastros, multiple doctors just to see if they could help, but they couldn't. And that's when I decided to look into hiring a functional nutritionist to really dive into the root cause of everything.
Okay, so up until that point, you had kind of been riding solo. Like you didn't have help from doctors. You weren't working with like a functional medical person. You were just like getting your information from the internet, social media, things like that.
Yep, exactly. I was like, I'd see a suggestion or try this supplement or do this. I'm like, okay, and I'll try it, because when you are suffering like that, you'll literally try anything. I know for me, I would.
Yeah, no, I have done some stupid shit. I
Hmm.
have done things that looking back, I'm like, in the moment, like you said, you're desperate and you hear other people say like this worked for them and you're like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I don't care. And like some of the things that I did, I remember one in particular, I did a liver cleanse for 10 days.
Oh my God.
And like I had, I think 3 mental breakdowns within 10 days, like literally sitting at my kitchen table crying because I'm like, I can't do this. But I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, what if this is the answer? What if this is
Right.
it? And yeah, in a way, it makes you crazy, like having gut
Mhm.
issues and then going seeking out help. No one's helping you. So you feel alone, you feel isolated. And then someone dangles something in front of you like, hey, this worked for me. You're like, I'll take it. I don't care what it
Yes.
is, what I have to do. I will do it. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's really unfortunate that
It
so many of
is.
us get to that point.
It is. It's all consuming is how I like, always explain it. It's like it consumes your whole life. I mean, everything you do, I mean, that's at the forefront of it, right? Like the clothes that you wear that day, like the things that you can eat, the social events that you can go to. I mean, like even when we would go away, I'd have to pack one outfit and then a separate outfit in case I was going to be bloated. I have to make sure I take my supplements at a certain time. If I miss them I mean, wake up at a certain time because that was another thing. It was like, it was on such a schedule that like, if I slept past my normal bowel movement time, that was it. I wouldn't have another chance to go until tomorrow. And so it was like, it really got to the point where like everything was just revolved around my gut, everything.
Yeah, I totally feel you. And it's stressful. And like we know stress is so bad for the gut. So
Hmm.
it's like this vicious cycle of we're desperately trying to feel better. We're doing all these things to a T, and then we're stressed out because, like you said, you don't want to miss your bowel movement time. So it's like
Mhm.
you're not even sleeping well because you're like, did I miss it? Did I miss the
Yeah,
time to wake up? Like it's like
yeah,
when you have an appointment that you don't want to miss or an
right.
exam, and then you can't sleep through the night.
It's like it's like a catch 22. It's like they say like, oh, you want to do stress management because stressing, makes it worse, but you're stressing about it. It's just so hard not to stress about it. So then you're stressing about
Yeah,
stressing and it's like, it's like a never
I
ending, like you
know.
said, a vicious cycle that just keeps going and going. But it's really challenging. And so many
Yeah,
people suffer. So I'm so
so
grateful
many
that
people.
you're doing this, honestly, because I think you'll help a lot of people.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad that you're here because your story is so relatable. Even listening to you now, I'm like, yes, yes. I literally went on vacation not that long ago and packed 2 outfits because I was like, what if I'm sick this day? Like
Yeah.
it matters. And I know people particularly will look at me and be like, "Oh, you're thin, you're not bloated." And it's like they're they're not related, man. Like you can be thin and be bloated, and even if it's not noticeable to
Hmm.
90% of the people around me, I notice it.
Right.
And it bothers me and I don't like it. And I know it's not normal. So
Hmm.
I'm
And
just trying to get my body working right.
yeah, and it's very uncomfortable. Like even whether people can see it or not, it's extremely uncomfortable,
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. And you don't want to wear tight clothes when your stomach is bulging out of there.
No, I feel like that
It's
even
more
makes it
uncomfortable.
worse a lot of times too. Having like that when
Yeah.
you're wearing something tight and constricting it, like I feel like it kind of aggravates the bloat even more.
Oh yeah, definitely. You're like squeezing your intestines in. They just
Hmm. Yeah.
um, all right. So anyway, back to the storyline. So you were riding solo for years, and then finally you kind of hit a breaking point, and were like, I need professional help. So where did you go find that help?
So I found her on Instagram. Somebody else that I follow was using her as a functional nutritionist and recommended her. So I reached out. She offered a package deal for me, which included, a lot of the testing. She thoroughly does the full panel of blood work. So hormonal panel, all of the things that I've never had tested before. Um, and again, at this point, I'm like, well, it's not, it's not hormones, it's my gut. Do you do gut health or you just do hormones? She's like, a lot of times they're connected. I was like, oh, well, I don't know. Okay. And so she did that. And I got the blood work done and I met with her, and it was extremely, extremely eye-opening. My hormones were not good. I was extremely estrogen dominant, which actually makes a lot of sense because people that have fibroid tumors tend to be estrogen dominant, but I was still extremely high. I still had very high estrogen even after the hysterectomy, which turns out high estrogen can cause constipation. And then I also, like, a lot of my other hormones were really low. So that is just so many different things. At this point, there were definitely some indicators that my gut was not good. She suspected dysbiosis, but in order to get more thorough analysis of my gut, we ended up doing a GI map, which have you ever had one of those done? They test everything.
I loved it.
Everything. It was super thorough. So between the blood work and the GI map, it was like we were able to really get down to the nitty gritty and find out everything. And it turned out I had a slight case of H. pylori, pretty bad leaky gut, actually, and the dysbiosis, like she said. I think the most surprising to me was the leaky gut, because leaky gut is often associated with people that have celiac disease or gluten sensitivities. And I had been gluten-free for so long. Gluten-free for so long. So I was so surprised that was there. Turns out that the gluten marker in there turned out pretty high. Looks like even though I'm not eating gluten, it was still registering that I was very sensitive to it, which is crazy because I haven't eaten it in like 8 years. So she's like, definitely keep staying away from gluten. She's kind of concluded that I could have possibly had a gluten allergy my whole life and just not known it. Because again, we didn't really talk about gluten allergies. We know when I was younger, and just some other things. And so she started me on a protocol, taking some supplements, cutting out certain things from my diet, changing things around. I've been doing that since December.
Oh, it's just okay. So we're almost in June, so 6 months almost.
Yeah, almost at my 6 months. Yep.
And how do you feel?
Great. Like, it's just, honestly, it just blows I have a follow-up meeting with her next week and I can't wait to chat with her, but it blows my mind because I'm not going to lie, I'd recently had another colonoscopy. I was like, again, I really want to get to the bottom of everything. I just want to make sure I'm covering all angles, So I went to a new gastro last month and I ended up getting another colonoscopy just a few weeks ago. And again, they were like, everything's great. See you in 10 years. And at that moment, 10 years. And at that moment, I was like, I have never been so grateful that I decided to pull the trigger and go with a functional nutritionist. Because if I hadn't, I would have just been constipated for 10 more years. Working with her has been great. The protocol has been challenging. Obviously, sticking to something that you're not used to and rearranging the way that you're used to eating is always difficult. And it was honestly very frustrating in the beginning. I was like, I can't do this. This is not going to work. I just can't do it. It's impossible. It's not going to work. And then, you do what you have to do. And I tend to sometimes have like an all or nothing attitude. Like, it's got to be perfect. And she's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just, do what you can. And so that's what I've been doing. And I'm happy to report that not only am I going to the bathroom every day, but most days I'm going 2 or 3 times a day.
Oh, yay.
Which is unbelievable, right? Like 6 months ago, I would pray to just go once a day. So that's been amazing. The bloating is way down. Even though I had a hysterectomy, I still have my ovaries. So I still actually cycle through my menstrual cycle. So I do sometimes still get bloated, like due to my period, but not in the same way that I did before, which is incredible. What other changes? I don't know. It's just been so good. Oh, so this is another change that's happened. And I haven't actually mentioned this too much because I don't want to jinx it. But I suffered from allergies my entire life. I'm talking like, put me in a bubble. I can't breathe. I would get asthmatic bronchitis. I would get asthmatic pneumonia. I would get so sick. My allergies were the stem of all of my illnesses. I was always sick as a kid, always sick, like on antibiotics every week. And allergies were so bad. My face, every May, my entire life, my face is swollen. I can't see. I'm suffering so bad. I haven't taken an allergy med yet this entire month. I
Yes.
am floored. And I didn't realize that all of that stems from your gut health.
It's so funny that you say that because I record these episodes in advance, right? So like this episode is going to be airing 2 weeks from now that we're recording it. But in between, I'm going to upload an episode on all the symptoms that I used to experience that seemingly don't connect to the gut. Like not obvious, like bloating, gas, constipation, not things like that. Things like seasonal allergies, because I had that exact same thing. Like it was September for me. Every September, my eyes would swell, they would water, I'd be itching them, like so bad seasonal allergies. I used to wear contacts, and I had to wear my glasses during that time because I could not put my contacts in. Ever since I've improved my gut health, I do not experience any seasonal allergies, and I haven't for about 3 years.
I have the chills just thinking about it because I'm like, I don't think people understand how bad it was. I actually have glasses. I can't even, like, the thought of putting contacts in my eyes, I'm like, I can't wear contacts because I have allergies. My doctor said, do you want contacts? I can't wear contacts because I have allergies. That was my answer because that's how bad they are. I was, I have them typically year round, but spring and fall are the worst. And I was like, yeah, there's no way I could put contacts in my eyes. I'm constantly rubbing my eyes. I was taking, Zyrtec twice a day, at times. And every day that I wake up, I'm like, oh my God, I haven't, I'm literally like, this is insane. Like, I cannot believe it. But I did find out, like you said recently, like it wasn't something I knew, like, cause it's not the typical bloating symptom. And I was like, is this because my gut is healing? It's so exciting. I can't get over it.
Oh, I'm so excited for you. That's incredible. Well, it sounds like you have come a long way from that 15 years ago. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, and I feel like I could talk to you for 2 hours about this. But I want to end it on a high note here. So you've been through it, it sounds like, and you're really starting to reach your peak and you're starting to feel better in the improvements that your nutritionist is helping you along with. So anyone listening who's experiencing anything similar to you, what would be your advice to them to get started or, to keep going? Any encouraging words that you have for them?
I guess for someone that's realizing their gut is something's not right, one, be your own advocate. Always fight for your right for healthcare. Don't settle on one doctor. If one doctor dismisses you, go to another, go to another, go to another. I don't, if it takes however many. Two, I would try a food journal. I think is a good idea. Trying to pinpoint what could be setting off your bloating or your symptoms or things like that could be helpful. I know sometimes it's really challenging to figure that out, especially if there's multiple things that are causing it. I actually always recommend people trying to cut out gluten and dairy because I know that those are the top contributors to gut issues, and also eliminating as many processed foods as possible. I know you've chatted about that a lot, but it really, really is full of things that destroy your gut. And from there, like I said, I would do the best you can. Follow accounts like yours that offer advice and tips. The tip that you shared with the breathing before you eat has been super helpful for me. So things like that, following accounts like you, or maybe seeking out a functional nutritionist, anything like that, whatever is in their budget. I know that, some people can afford certain things, but luckily we have great resources like you available. And so that would be my tip.
Well, thank you. Those are great tips. I also agree with processed food. I know people have a hard time giving it up, but if you're struggling, like if you're really struggling, the stuff is damaging. It's not, you're not going to be able to fully get rid of your symptoms if you're continuing to eat ultra processed food day in, day out. It doesn't mean you can never ever eat it again. It doesn't mean you can't, occasionally treat yourself, but if that is the majority of your meals, it's not going to work, man.
Yeah, I would
work.
say cut it out for a couple weeks. Don't make it like this long-term ordeal because that's overwhelming and sounds stressful. Just, I would say, like, go in with the attitude of like, just see what happens. Like, I want to do this. I'm going to cut out processed food for a couple weeks because I'm just curious to see what happens. And then a lot of times you start to add it back in after those 2 weeks. And that's when you really kind of notice, oh, wait, I wasn't feeling this for 2 weeks and now all of a sudden I am again, and I think that is where the eye-opener becomes, because even with me with the gluten, I cut that out and then I was like, well, maybe I can eat it again. And I got a pizza and I was sick for like 2 weeks. I was like, okay, yeah, nope, we're not doing that again.
That's horrible.
So I think just going at it with like a curiosity and not feeling like you have to do this, just you're curious to see how what your body will feel like if you do that.
That's a great point. And like, I feel like our biggest motivator is when we start to feel better. So if you cut out that food for 2 weeks and you notice, wow, I haven't felt this good in years, that kind of makes you not want it anymore anyway.
Yes, exactly. I completely agree.
Well, that is great tips. So Laurie, you have been phenomenal and you have so much experience. And I know that you are also a holistic health coach. So please let everyone know where they can find you if they would like to work with you. Anything you got going on, let us hear it.
You can find me on Instagram at poweredbyplants8. That is my handle, poweredbyplants8. I like to work with women that are in their late 30s, 40s, struggling with weight loss, or maybe the whole like menopausal, like trying to refigure out how to gain their health back, right? Because once you hit your 40s, things change, and things that worked in our 20s and our early 30s don't work anymore. So that's where I like to keep my little niche in there, is working with women and helping them figure out a way to feel good in their skin, regardless of their size, and figure out navigating their 40s and what health looks like now.
That is fantastic. Everybody needs a health coach. Honestly, if you're struggling, like you said, doctors aren't cutting it. And I personally believe people like you who have experienced it themselves, they have gone through the 15-year struggle, like you have seen it all. You have a passion to help people. And I would trust you. I would trust you to help me if I was suffering like that. So please, everyone, go follow Laurie and check out her Instagram page if you want to work with her. I'm sure send her a DM. Is that how you'd like to?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. I also have you can click a link. There's also a form you could fill out just to see, if we'd be great to work together or not and what your health goals are, or you can just send me a DM. Either one is fine.
Awesome. Okay. Well, everyone, go do it. Laurie's fantastic, very experienced, and I'm so happy you're feeling better. That makes me happy.
I know, it's exciting. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you for being here. I'll talk to you later.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Bloated podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your fellow gut goddesses. If you'd like to chat about today's episode, send me a DM on Instagram at beyond.bloated. Until next time, bye!